Okinawa is basically the same as Japan for the most part. You know, a lot of people, they look a little bit different. When you meet someone that's from Okinawa, even though they're speaking Japanese, you can kind of tell they're Okinawan. And there's a lot of names that are like just for Okinawan people. Like one of them is Shimabukuro. You never really hear that unless you're, you know, on Okinawa. When it comes to, you know, the way people live or like the jobs they have, it's just like Japan. It's, you know, just its own little island. But the problem is that it gets the worst tropical storms ever. It's off the coast of Japan and it's out in the middle of the ocean, and like Okinawa gets super typhoons, crazy monsoons, like it gets all of this crazy weather. And so, you know, a lot of times you'll see the city just like shut down. You'll get these weather alerts and everything just shuts down. But luckily most of Okinawa is just like these like cement buildings. They look like a bunch of squares just all over all these hills. And it'll be super bright and sunny one day. You'll have flowers and all these trees. And then the next day you wake up and everything's gray, covered in salt and dirt and stuff like that, because the typhoon just comes by and just destroys everything. So it's kind of cool because the city can be so beautiful and then, you know, just get torn apart, and then like a week after that look beautiful again. Like it just, the environment in Okinawa is always changing. Okinawa, it's like its own different place, you know. So like you start out in Fukuoka, you fly in there, and if you end up getting sent to Okinawa, you fly down to like, it's like the Hawaii of Japan, you know. It's like a whole different culture. There's definitely still like a big Japanese influence, like, you know, everyone there speaks Japanese, there's Japanese writing everywhere. But Okinawa didn't always used to be a part of Japan. They used to have their own language, their own culture and stuff like that, and that's still there. So I think the biggest thing that I saw is when you go to Okinawa, there are these little dogs called shisa everywhere. They're always on people's doorsteps, and they're supposed to be like guardians of like evil spirits or whatever, and they are everywhere. They're in front of banks, they're in front of city hall, they're in front of your apartment, everyone's apartment. I saw ones that were like this tiny sitting on people's doorsteps. I saw ones that were bigger than I was. You see ones that look angry, that are sad. It's just everywhere you go there's a shisa dog. That's everywhere. And I think another thing too is just the food, I guess. They have Goya. There's this vegetable called Goya, and it's like this. It looks like I don't know how to describe it. It's green. It's like has all these little bumps all over it, and it's like the most bitter vegetable you've ever had in your life. And I never got too into it. Like I ate it, but most members are like in love with it. If it's Okinawa, you gotta have Goya. Like everyone was always eating Goya. But in terms of Okinawa itself, there's a very big American influence. The American military has a huge presence there. The place where I served in Futenma, we had our area was kind of like a circle in the middle of the island, and so it's about this big, and the base was right here in the middle. So if ever you wanted to go to the other side, you couldn't go through the base; you had to go all the way around. And yeah, I think that was the biggest difference. Is in Japan, you know, you had all these Japanese people everywhere, not too much of a, I guess, foreigner influence, but in Okinawa, like the military has a really strong influence there. Not only just on the culture in Okinawa, but also in the church itself. Most wards they have, or most church buildings will have a military ward that could have like over 200 members, and they would also have like the Japanese ward. And that was pretty cool seeing not only the church, you know, in the Japanese culture, but also in that military culture as well. It was kind of cool being able to serve, I guess, in America while I was in Japan. I really enjoyed that. The culture itself, like in Japan, the family is not too strong, I guess. Like the idea of family is not that strong, but in Okinawa, like family is everything. I think some of the biggest families that I ever saw of like Japanese people were on Okinawa, and everyone just has, you know, such like a welcoming attitude. And yeah, it was weird being in a place that was so much like Japan, but there was so many different cultural stuff that was different, I guess, in terms of the way you greeted people. Like Japanese, they say like konnichiwa, or like Okinawans, they say haisai, which it's a completely different word. It's not even Japanese. So there's like language stuff, there's food, there's just culture. It's definitely its own special little place. Yeah. It's basically like what Hawaii is to America, I guess, where it is considered a state, and it is Japan. Like it's just as much as like Fukuoka is, you know, like a, I guess like a state in Japan. Okinawa is just as much of a state. So it's there's nothing, like, it's not owned by itself. It's not like some separate country. Like, it is Japan. It's just like, Hawaii had a completely different culture before it became a part of like America. And it still has that culture now. Okinawa is a lot of the same way, where like currency's the same, like they speak English, stuff like that, but they still hold on to that rich culture.